If you've been struggling with persistent bloating and unexplained muscle weakness, what I'm about to share with you might change everything. These symptoms that many people dismiss as simply getting older could be warning signs your body is desperately trying to send you, and the solution might be sitting right in your kitchen cabinet. But here's what most people don't know. The wrong approach could actually make things worse. I'm Dr. Helen Brooks, and over my 20 years as a gastroenterologist specializing in digestive health and nutritional medicine, I've seen thousands of patients who suffered needlessly because they didn't understand the powerful connection between what we drink and how our bodies function. Today, I want to share with you 3 natural teas that have changed the lives of many of my patients, but more importantly, I want to show you exactly why they work and how to use them correctly. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I strongly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one, and that's how I can create more content to help more people just like you. Let me tell you about something that happened in my clinic that completely opened my eyes to the power of these natural remedies. I had a patient, let's call her Margaret, a 68-year-old retired teacher who came to see me absolutely exhausted and frustrated. She told me that for the past 3 years, she'd been dealing with such severe bloating that by the afternoon, she had to change into loose clothing. But what worried her most wasn't the bloating itself. It was the muscle weakness that had developed over the past year. Margaret described how she used to love gardening, spending hours tending to her roses and vegetables. But lately, she could barely hold her gardening tools for more than 15 minutes before her hands would start trembling. She'd tried everything: multiple doctor visits, various medications, dietary changes, probiotics, you name it. Her previous doctors had run tests, found nothing alarming, and basically told her it was just part of aging. But Margaret knew something wasn't right. She could feel it. When I sat down with her and really listened to her full story, I discovered something crucial. Margaret had been dealing with chronic low-grade inflammation in her digestive system, and this inflammation was preventing her body from properly absorbing essential minerals, particularly magnesium and potassium. These minerals are absolutely vital for muscle function. No wonder she was experiencing weakness. Her body was literally starving for nutrients even though she was eating well. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I started Margaret on a specific tea protocol, and within just 2 weeks she noticed a difference. After 6 weeks, she came back to my office with tears in her eyes, telling me she'd spent an entire afternoon in her garden without any significant fatigue or bloating. That's when I knew I had to share this information with more people. But before I tell you about these 3 powerful teas, I need you to understand something critical. Bloating and muscle weakness don't just appear out of nowhere. They're symptoms, messages from your body that something deeper needs attention. In my years of practice, I've learned that these 2 symptoms together often point to a fascinating connection between gut health, inflammation, and nutrient absorption that most people, and sadly, even some healthcare providers, completely overlook. Think about your digestive system for a moment. It's not just responsible for breaking down food, it's the gateway through which every single nutrient enters your body. When your gut is inflamed, bloated, or not functioning optimally, it's like trying to water a garden with a kinked hose. The water is there, but it can't get where it needs to go. Your muscles, your nerves, your brain, they all depend on nutrients that must pass through your digestive system first. Let me share another case that really drives this point home. I worked with a gentleman named Robert, 72 years old, a former construction worker who'd always prided himself on his strength. Robert came to me because he was experiencing such severe bloating that he'd stopped going to his weekly poker games with friends. He was embarrassed by the constant gas and discomfort. But what really scared him was that he'd started having trouble climbing stairs. His legs would feel weak and shaky, and he'd have to pause halfway up. Robert's wife was terrified he was having heart problems. They'd been to the cardiologist, who ran every test imaginable. His heart was fine. Then they went to a neurologist, thinking maybe it was something with his nerves. Again, all tests came back normal. When Robert finally came to me, he was defeated. He said something I'll never forget. "Doctor, I feel like my body is betraying me, and nobody can tell me why." After a thorough evaluation, I discovered that Robert had what we call dysbiosis, an imbalance in his gut bacteria, combined with inflammation in his intestinal lining. This was causing terrible bloating, but it was also preventing him from absorbing B vitamins and magnesium properly. These nutrients are absolutely essential for muscle energy production. His muscles weren't getting the fuel they needed to function properly. I started Robert on a comprehensive approach that included the 3 T's I'm going to share with you today, and the transformation was remarkable. Within 3 weeks, his bloating had decreased by about 70%. Within 2 months, he was climbing stairs without any difficulty and had rejoined his poker games. His wife told me it was like getting her husband back. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, please comment below to let me know you're with me. It really helps me understand what content is most useful for you. Now, let's talk about the first T, and this one is probably sitting in your kitchen right now. Ginger tea is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to addressing both bloating and supporting muscle function, but not in the way most people think. Yes, ginger is famous for settling upset stomachs, but its real magic lies in its ability to reduce inflammation throughout your entire digestive tract. You see, ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogols. These are potent anti-inflammatory agents that work by inhibiting certain enzymes in your body that promote inflammation. When inflammation in your gut decreases, several amazing things happen simultaneously. First, the bloating reduces because your intestines can move food through more efficiently. Second, and this is the part most people don't know, your intestinal lining can heal and start absorbing nutrients properly again. Let me tell you about Sarah, a 65-year-old woman who had been suffering from bloating for almost 5 years. Every single day, by mid-afternoon, she looked like she was 6 months pregnant. She'd been tested for everything: celiac disease, lactose intolerance, you name it. Everything came back negative. But Sarah also mentioned something else that worried her. She'd been having muscle cramps at night, particularly in her calves, and her hands felt weak when she tried to open jars or carry groceries. When I examined Sarah's diet and lifestyle, I found that she was actually eating quite healthily. Lots of vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. But her body wasn't processing any of it properly because of chronic gut inflammation. I explained to her that it's not just what you eat, it's what you absorb that matters. I started her on a regimen of fresh ginger tea, made by steeping about 1 inch of fresh ginger root in hot water for 10 to 15 minutes, 3 times a day. Sarah was skeptical at first. She told me, "Dr. Brooks, I've tried so many things. Why would tea make a difference?" But I asked her to trust the process and give it 4 weeks. She agreed. About 3 weeks in, Sarah called my office, excited. She said the bloating had improved significantly, but what really shocked her was that the nighttime leg cramps had almost completely stopped. She hadn't expected that at all. What Sarah didn't realize was that by reducing the inflammation in her gut, her body could finally absorb magnesium properly again. Magnesium is crucial for muscle relaxation and preventing cramps. The ginger wasn't just treating her bloating, it was addressing the root cause that was affecting her entire body. This is what I love about natural medicine when used correctly. It doesn't just mask symptoms, it helps your body heal itself. Now, when I recommend ginger tea to my patients, I'm very specific about how to prepare it. You want to use fresh ginger root, not the powdered stuff from the spice rack. Slice about 1 inch of fresh ginger. You don't even need to peel it if it's organic, and steep it in hot water for at least 10 to 15 minutes. The longer it steeps, the more of those beneficial compounds you'll extract. You can add a bit of honey if you like, but avoid adding dairy, as that can sometimes counteract the anti-inflammatory effects. Drink this tea about 20 to 30 minutes before meals. This timing is crucial because it primes your digestive system, increasing enzyme production and improving gastric motility. Many of my patients report that when they do this consistently, they notice less bloating after meals and more sustained energy throughout the day. But if that surprised you, wait until you hear about the second tea. This one is less commonly known but incredibly powerful. Fennel tea has been used for digestive issues for thousands of years, but modern research has given us fascinating insights into exactly why it works so well. Fennel contains compounds called enethol and fenchone, which have remarkable antispasmodic properties. What does that mean in plain English? It means fennel helps relax the smooth muscles in your digestive tract, allowing gas to pass more easily and reducing that uncomfortable bloated feeling. But here's what makes fennel particularly interesting for people dealing with both bloating and muscle weakness. Fennel is rich in potassium and contains compounds that help improve the bioavailability of minerals in your digestive system. Potassium is absolutely essential for proper muscle contraction and nerve function. When you're deficient in potassium, you'll experience muscle weakness, fatigue, and even irregular heartbeats in severe cases. I had a patient, let's call him James, a 71-year-old retired accountant who came to me with a peculiar complaint. He said that every time he ate, within about an hour, he'd feel so bloated and uncomfortable that he'd have to lie down. But James also told me something that caught my attention. He'd been experiencing muscle twitching, particularly in his eyelids and calves, and his energy levels were at an all-time low. James had been to several doctors who'd prescribed various medications for the bloating, antacids, proton pump inhibitors, even anxiety medication, because one doctor thought it might be stress-related. Nothing worked. When I reviewed his history, I noticed he'd been on a diuretic medication for blood pressure for about 3 years. This is important because diuretics, while necessary for some people, can deplete potassium levels if not monitored carefully. I suspected James was dealing with two interconnected issues: digestive dysfunction causing the bloating, and low potassium contributing to his muscle symptoms. I coordinated with his cardiologist to adjust his medications and started him on fennel tea 3 cups a day. I also taught him to recognize potassium-rich foods and how to incorporate them better into his diet. Within 2 weeks, James called me, amazed. The bloating had improved dramatically. He could eat a normal meal without that awful distended feeling afterward. But what really excited him was that the muscle twitching had stopped, and he felt like he had energy again. He told me, "Dr. Brooks, I feel 20 years younger. I can think clearly again, I'm not exhausted all the time, and I can actually enjoy my meals." James's case taught me something important that I share with all my patients now. Our bodies are interconnected systems. You can't just treat the bloating or just treat the muscle weakness. You have to address the underlying imbalances that are causing both. That's where these teas shine. They work on multiple levels simultaneously. To prepare fennel tea, you can use either fennel seeds or fennel tea bags, though I prefer the seeds because they're more potent. Take about 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds, crush them lightly with the back of a spoon to release the oils, then steep in hot water for about 10 minutes. The tea has a slightly sweet, licorice-like flavor that most people find quite pleasant. Drink it after meals to help with digestion and reduce bloating. One thing I always tell my patients: consistency is key. Drinking these teas occasionally won't give you the results you're looking for. You need to make them part of your daily routine for at least 4 to 6 weeks to see significant improvements. Your body needs time to heal and rebalance. Now let me tell you about the third tea, and this one might surprise you because it's not typically associated with digestive health. Nettle tea, also known as stinging nettle tea, is an absolute powerhouse for addressing both bloating and muscle weakness, but it works through a completely different mechanism than ginger and fennel. Nettle is incredibly rich in minerals, particularly iron, magnesium, calcium, and potassium. But more importantly, nettle has a unique ability to reduce inflammation throughout the body while supporting kidney function, which is crucial for maintaining proper electrolyte balance. Let me explain why this matters. Your kidneys are responsible for regulating the balance of minerals in your body. When your kidneys aren't functioning optimally, even if they're not diseased, just a bit sluggish, you can end up with electrolyte imbalances that cause muscle weakness, cramping, and fatigue. At the same time, inflammation anywhere in your body, including your kidneys and digestive system, can create a cascade of problems that manifest as bloating. I'll never forget a patient named Dorothy, a 69-year-old woman who had been dealing with severe bloating and what she described as heavy legs. Dorothy told me that by the end of each day, her legs felt so heavy and weak that climbing the single flight of stairs to her bedroom felt like climbing a mountain. She'd also noticed swelling in her ankles and a general feeling of being puffy and uncomfortable all over. When I ran some tests, I discovered that Dorothy's kidney function, while not in the danger zone, was definitely not optimal. This was causing her body to retain excess fluid, which explained both the bloating and the heavy feeling in her legs. But it was also affecting her electrolyte balance, contributing to her muscle weakness. Dorothy's previous doctors had prescribed diuretics, which helped with the swelling but made her feel even more tired and weak. I took a different approach with Dorothy. I started her on nettle tea, 2 cups a day, and made some adjustments to her diet to support kidney function. I also had her reduce her sodium intake and increase her intake of foods rich in B vitamins. Nettle is a natural, gentle diuretic, meaning it helps your body eliminate excess fluid without depleting essential minerals the way pharmaceutical diuretics sometimes can. The results were remarkable. Within 3 weeks, Dorothy's bloating had improved significantly. Within 6 weeks, she told me she could climb her stairs without feeling exhausted, and the heavy feeling in her legs was gone. She said, "I feel lighter, both physically and emotionally. I didn't realize how much this was affecting my mood until it got better." Dorothy's case illustrates something I see often. Sometimes what we think is just a digestive issue is actually a sign that multiple systems in the body need support. The beauty of nettle tea is that it provides that support in a gentle, natural way. To prepare nettle tea, you can use dried nettle leaves or nettle tea bags. Use about 2 teaspoons of dried nettle per cup of water, steep for 10 to 15 minutes, and drink it warm. Some people prefer to make a larger batch and drink it throughout the day. I recommend starting with 1 cup a day and gradually increasing to 2 or 3 cups, depending on how your body responds. One important note about nettle: if you're on blood pressure medications or diuretics, you should definitely talk to your doctor before adding nettle tea to your routine, as it can interact with these medications. This is true for any natural remedy. They're powerful, and they can interact with medications just like pharmaceutical drugs can. Now, here's something crucial that I need you to understand. While these 3 teas are incredibly powerful, they work best as part of a comprehensive approach to health. I've seen countless patients who drink these teas religiously, but continue eating inflammatory foods, living with chronic stress, and not getting enough sleep. The teas help, but they can't work miracles if you're not addressing the other factors affecting your health. Let me share one more story that really brings this home. I had a patient named Thomas, a 75-year-old retired engineer who came to me with severe bloating and such significant muscle weakness that he'd had to stop his beloved hobby of woodworking. His hands would shake, and he didn't trust himself to use power tools safely anymore. This was devastating for Thomas because woodworking wasn't just a hobby, it was his passion and his way of staying mentally sharp. Thomas was skeptical of natural remedies. He was a man of science. He wanted pharmaceutical interventions and clear mechanisms of action. But he'd tried multiple medications for his digestive issues with no success, and no one could figure out why he was so weak despite normal test results. I sat down with Thomas and explained the biochemistry behind these teas, how they work, and why they might help when conventional treatments hadn't. I told him, "Thomas, I'm not asking you to abandon science or conventional medicine. I'm asking you to expand your understanding of what medicine can be. These teas contain compounds that have been studied extensively. They work through identifiable biochemical pathways. Give me 8 weeks, follow my protocol exactly, and if you don't see improvement, we'll try something else." Thomas agreed, though reluctantly. I started him on all 3 teas, rotating them throughout the day: ginger tea before meals, fennel tea after meals, and nettle tea in the late afternoon. I also worked with him on dietary changes, reducing processed foods and increasing whole food sources of protein and vegetables. I had him start gentle stretching exercises to support muscle function. 8 weeks later, Thomas came back to my office with a small wooden box he'd made. He handed it to me with a smile and said, "Dr. Brooks, I made this for you. My hands are steady again. The bloating is 90% better. I have my life back." I still have that box in my office. It reminds me why I do what I do. Thomas's transformation didn't happen because of the teas alone. It happened because he addressed multiple factors simultaneously: reducing inflammation with the teas, improving his diet to support gut healing and nutrient absorption, and gently exercising to maintain muscle function. This is the approach I want you to take. If you're dealing with bloating and muscle weakness, here's what I recommend. Start with 1 tea at a time and pay attention to how your body responds. Begin with ginger tea for 1 week, then add fennel tea in the 2nd week, and finally add nettle tea in the 3rd week if you feel you need it. This gradual approach helps you identify which tea is most beneficial for you personally, because everyone is different. Keep a simple journal noting your bloating levels, energy levels, and any muscle symptoms each day. This will help you see patterns and improvements that you might otherwise miss. Our bodies change gradually, and sometimes we don't notice improvement until we look back and compare where we were to where we are now. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, if you're experiencing persistent bloating and muscle weakness, you need to see a healthcare provider for proper evaluation. While these symptoms are often related to digestive inflammation and nutrient absorption issues, They can occasionally indicate more serious conditions that need medical attention. These teas are incredibly beneficial, but they're not a substitute for proper medical care. I want you to think of these teas as tools to support your body's natural healing processes. Your body has an amazing capacity to heal itself when given the right support. Chronic inflammation, poor nutrient absorption, electrolyte imbalances, these are all things your body wants to correct. Sometimes it just needs a little help. Here's something else I've observed over my years in practice. People who take an active role in their health, who educate themselves and try natural approaches alongside conventional medicine, tend to do better overall. There's something empowering about taking charge of your health, about understanding what's happening in your body and actively working to improve it. But I also want to address something important: patience. In our modern world, we're used to quick fixes. Take a pill, feel better in an hour. But chronic conditions that have developed over months or years don't resolve overnight. When my patients ask me how long it will take to see results, I tell them honestly, you might notice some improvement in bloating within a week or two, but significant changes in muscle strength and overall well-being typically take 4 to 8 weeks of consistent effort. This isn't because the teas don't work, it's because your body needs time to heal. Think about it this way. If you had a cut on your hand, you wouldn't expect it to heal instantly. You'd keep it clean, protect it, and give it time. The same principle applies to healing from the inside. Be patient with yourself and your body. I also want to talk about the importance of hydration. Many people don't realize that chronic dehydration can worsen both bloating and muscle weakness. When you're not drinking enough water, your body holds on to the water it has, which can cause bloating. Dehydration also affects muscle function because your muscles are about 75% water. When you're adding these teas to your routine, make sure you're also drinking plenty of plain water throughout the day. One of the questions I get most often is, can I drink all 3 teas in the same day? The answer is yes, but be mindful of the total amount. I typically recommend no more than 6 to 8 cups of herbal tea total per day. You might do ginger tea in the morning and before lunch, fennel tea after lunch and dinner, and nettle tea in the late afternoon. Find a rhythm that works for you and your schedule. Another common question: what about tea bags versus loose tea? Honestly, both can work well. Loose tea is often more potent because it's fresher and less processed, but quality tea bags can be very effective too. The most important thing is consistency and quality. Look for organic teas when possible, as herbs can concentrate pesticides if they're not grown organically. Let me share one final story that I think beautifully illustrates the potential of these natural remedies. I worked with a woman named Elizabeth, 73 years old, who had been suffering from bloating and muscle weakness for so long that she'd basically accepted it as her new normal. She came to me not because she thought I could help, but because her daughter insisted she try one more thing before giving up. Elizabeth told me, "Doctor, I'm tired of trying things that don't work. I'm tired of getting my hopes up. But my daughter won't stop nagging me, so here I am." I appreciated her honesty. I told her I understood her frustration, and I couldn't promise miracles, but I could promise to listen to her and work with her to find an approach that made sense for her unique situation. We started slowly. Just ginger tea, once a day, before her largest meal. That's it. No pressure, no complicated protocols. After 2 weeks, Elizabeth admitted she thought maybe the bloating was a tiny bit better. She wasn't sure, but maybe. I encouraged her to continue and asked if she'd be willing to add fennel tea after that same meal. She agreed. 4 weeks in, Elizabeth came back, and I could see the difference before she even spoke. She looked brighter, more energetic. She told me the bloating had improved significantly, and she'd noticed she wasn't feeling as tired in the afternoons. We added the nettle tea and continued for another month. At her 8-week follow-up, Elizabeth actually hugged me. She said, "Dr. Brooks, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel good. Actually good. I'd forgotten what that felt like. I can walk without my legs feeling heavy. I can eat without feeling miserable afterward. I have energy to spend time with my grandchildren." She paused and added, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I'd given up on myself." Elizabeth's story reminds me why I'm so passionate about sharing this information. There are so many people out there suffering unnecessarily, accepting symptoms as inevitable, when simple, natural interventions could make such a profound difference in their quality of life. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Bloating and muscle weakness are not just minor annoyances to put up with. They're signals from your body that something needs attention. The 3 teas we've discussed today, ginger, fennel, and nettle, offer a natural, gentle way to address the underlying causes of these symptoms: inflammation, poor nutrient absorption, and electrolyte imbalances. Start with 1 tea. Be consistent. Give your body time to heal and pay attention to how you feel. Keep in mind that these are tools to support your health, not magic bullets. They work best as part of an overall healthy lifestyle that includes good nutrition, adequate hydration, stress management, and regular gentle movement. Most importantly, don't suffer in silence. If you're experiencing these symptoms, talk to your healthcare provider. Bring up the idea of trying these teas as part of your treatment plan. A good doctor will be open to incorporating natural remedies alongside conventional treatments when appropriate. I want to leave you with a message of hope. Your body is incredibly resilient. Even if you've been dealing with these symptoms for years, improvement is possible. I've seen it happen countless times in my practice. People who thought they'd just have to live with discomfort, discovering that they can feel vibrant and energetic again. You deserve to feel good in your body, regardless of your age. If you found this information helpful, please share this video with someone who might benefit from it. Leave a comment below telling me about your experience with bloating or muscle weakness, or if you have questions about these teas. I read every comment and use your feedback to create more helpful content. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos, where I'll be sharing more natural approaches to common health concerns. Together, we can take charge of our health and live the vibrant, comfortable lives we deserve. Take care of yourself, be patient with your healing journey, and remember, you have more power over your health than you might think. Sometimes the most powerful medicine is already within reach. We just need to know how to use it.